My name is Daniel Abrahams, and recently I just had a private discussion with a seasoned finance professional. Because of his new role, he cannot publicly discuss any specifics about the financial field online, and because of that, I'm going to respect the boundaries of his work and discuss what I can discuss. Obviously, I can't discuss anything too specific on anything specific. Yeah, I'm going to leave it at there. About this finance professional, he graduated from the University of Florida. He was a former analyst at one of the most prominent banks in the world. When I say that, you should have an idea of which banks we're talking about, that kind of group. He has very strong experience with private equity, investment banking, and venture capital roles, and he is currently an associate at an extremely reputable private investment firm. He also has an impressive side project that demonstrates a lot of persistence, initiative, strategic thinking, and definitely put him ahead. We're going to be talking about that. Um, the very first thing I was talking about with him was how did he frame his side project that he had worked on for so long, especially in interviews? What kind of responses was he getting from professionals? He he said that in his earlier years of the side project that he didn't really mention it, but once it started having some output, some attention, he started mentioning it, putting on his resume, and he said that professionals, recruiters specifically, they love to ask about it because it demonstrates that you obviously have some passions, that you have initiative, drive, you have things going on outside your work, your school. So definitely super awesome. He said, I asked him as well if his side project help demonstrate his potential in a capacity that his resume couldn't in interviews. And he said that it didn't particularly demonstrate his potential, but it showed that he was a capable person. He was able to conduct things on his own and kind of keep himself driven and disciplined. And it also helped him build a lot of credibility. So if you're a business student, I would definitely recommend getting a side project, especially if you don't have many extracurriculars, if you're not in many organizations, you don't have many experiences among those lines, a side project's perfect. It demonstrates that you have drive, that you can pursue things on your own, that you can be both collaborative, both independent. So definitely look into pursuing a side project for sure. In regard to his role at this very prestigious, very prominent bank, I asked him what were the key technical skills he needed for advising leadership, especially across all these different types of companies he was working with. Uh, Startups, mega cap companies. It was super crazy. Said that he collaborated with definitely a lot of investment banking teams, VC teams, private equity teams. Um, he helped align strategy to long-term business objectives. And he said it was actually very qualitative, not quantitative. I feel that a lot of finance majors and or finance professions have a misconception that they're quantitative, but very obviously very qualitative. And remember, this is at a very high level. This is like top level roles that he was working in, and obviously doesn't require too much technical skills. Obviously, that's what he told me. You should be still focus with your fundamental financial modeling. Obviously, you have to understand your use of Excel, PowerPoint, but I guess some are analysts. They get the brunt of all the quantitative work, huh? Yeah, we also talked about the difference between private equity, venture capital. As I said before, that uh, talking about qualitative work, venture capital is much more qualitative, while the private equity is on more of the quantitative side. Private equity, they're making larger deals. They're more focused on the numbers. Of course, there's associates that are going to make the deals. That's within the profession, of course, but it's very focused on the numbers. They're understanding very marginal differences, especially against debt when financing or structuring deals, and they're trying to find that margin. So that tight margin, he emphasized tight. So that was something I kind of took away when he was talking about private equity. For venture capital, it's more news-based, more fundamental or qualitative, I guess you could say people's based. Of course, we're making deals as well, but it's more qualitative. You have to understand which company is going to be the 100x pony, the or unicorn, sorry, 100x unicorn or something like that. So I then asked him what was an underrated skill that helps him stand out in competitive environments. And he gave me an answer that was so unexpected that I couldn't believe it. He said, leveraging AI was the underrated skill that is extremely efficient, most effective, everything. It's good to know that very prestigious institutional or financial institutions are starting to understand the value of AI and implement it in their work, the diligence in their processes. And it's only allowing AI to get stronger. And I think that as time goes on, the processes of the financial world, the banking world, all these kind of behind the scenes is going to get optimized and it's going to get faster. But, and he even told me at this very prestigious bank that he worked at that they had created their own GPT model specifically for the bankers. And I thought that was amazing. I thought that was super interesting that a top bank was starting to implement it. He said that it was pretty lackluster. It was pretty basic. It didn't help with too much of the modeling or anything quantitative, but he said that it was more or less for writing reports, maybe news, summarizing, producing synopsis of information. So it obviously wasn't up to par, but to have a one of the most powerful banks start utilizing AI is super amazing. So that shows where we're kind of heading in the future. I then asked him what would he think the future of Gen Z in finance careers looks like. He first said that there's going to be a big wealth transfer, especially with the baby boomers of society. We're going to see a lot of distribution and kind of wealth attract to that side and, or sorry, lean to that side, let's say. So we're going to see a lot of wealth being put there. We also, as we were talking about AI before, he wanted to emphasize how banking and finance needs that human element because although AI might optimize the processes, understand data and analyze data faster, humans are going to make those deals. They're going to make those connections with those other business owners, those other financial figures. So banking will always have that human element. And we were also talking about common mistakes for aspiring young professionals. And a lot in this culture, a lot of young professionals, they focus too much on the prestigious title, let's say. I want to be the investment banker. I want to be this title and this title. And people are focusing more on the title and don't quite understand the difficulties that come from that. And this causes people to, as he noted, look over a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities. For example, he said something super intriguing about search funds, which I will gladly look up and kind of research. But yeah, that mindset definitely allows people to overlook a lot of opportunities and set themselves up for disappointment. So, one question I asked him was something that he had to unlearn to grow as a professional. And his response was that it wasn't something that he had to unlearn, but he had to learn how to learn more effectively. He had to optimize his thinking, meaning he probably changed the way he approached things, trying new things, challenged his preconceived notions. He was keep on learning and learning. And that's something that recruiters, they love. They love when someone, an interviewee can demonstrate that they're a continuous learner and they're really that keeps someone creatively thinking, that keeps someone more innovative. So definitely super insightful and definitely something to take away from that as well. I had asked him as well, when your pace is that of someone who is a high performing individual, how do you make sure that you're not just running, but you're running in the right place, the right direction? And he said when he worked at one of the big four consulting companies, he reflected a lot on his values, what he wanted most. And he said that environment, he couldn't find his values in his environment, which led him to make that big switch in careers. And he said he emphasized actually that environment really is everything, especially when you're working in that profession. You have to love the environment. Lastly, I'd asked him what was the most valuable advice that he had received and how did he apply it. And he told me how he has a loving family, people on the outside of his work that depends on him, that love him. And he said that's the reason that he can keep on going because he has a reason to fight, and that's how he can most optimally enjoy the fruit of his labor. So yeah, super and powerful stuff. Definitely learned a lot. I hope at least somebody else learned a lot too. Thank you.